Like, if you're supposed to be wearing gloves when you're cutting carrots, you probably shouldn't be peeing in a mop bucket in the same area.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
I'm looking forward to seeing where this episode goes because it's a mystery to us all. Last time we tried to record this episode, my home studio collapsed multiple times, and we took it as a sign that this was not meant to be and that we were supposed to stop recording this episode that day. So we've returned to the scene of the crime and let's see how it goes. I'm hoping everything stays up.
Right? Well, since we are at the scene of the crime again, we're going to start investigating. What do Bieber, Bourdain, and a bucket have in common?
I know.
Might not be what you think. So this episode came about because I was watching my version of crap TV, which is a lot of times those I don't even want to give a shout out to the place
channel.
The channel, because I don't agree with how they operate, and
trash celebrity culture TV shows generally. Yes. I think that would summarize it, right?
Yes. And like the stupid things celebrities sometimes do, and the biggest,
there are many because they're humans, like us.
Exactly. So I was watching one of these like compilation shows of like the biggest celebrity like social media missteps, and interestingly enough, I'm watching these. It was like, these are the biggest missteps, but whatever. Everybody can have their own opinion on this stuff. Mm-hmm. No judgment.
We listen and we don't judge. So if you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to the last episode. We did a whole episode on that.
So one of the celebrity missteps had to do with Justin Bieber. Now, anybody who has any sort of inkling of kind of pop culture, this isn't a rare occurrence, especially, well, wasn't. Wasn't.
Yes.
This instance took place when Justin Bieber was younger. I believe like very late teen, like 19, 20. Still, I mean, trying to figure out lifing celebrity and all of those things. Like,
I mean, if you think about the age that he was like first broke into the music scene, and I just cannot comprehend what it must be like to be thrust into that world and everything that comes with it, the paparazzi, the parties, the attention, the adoration, the judgment, the criticism. Like, I can only imagine for somebody who is, I mean, I can only imagine what that would be like at this point in my life. As somebody, my needs are well met. I know how to take care of myself. I'm very happy setting boundaries and saying no. At this point in my life, I imagine it would be thoroughly overwhelming, and I just cannot imagine. I'm like, hard no. Mid-teens? I mean, he was like early teens, I think, when he first...
I don't even think he was teens when he first got discovered. I think he was like, he might have been on like that preteen cusp, like when he first popped up on YouTube. Just thinking about like the relation of how old I was, because I remembered before he got big, I was with my cousin and he was at the mall in Orlando, and I'm like, no, we're not going to see. I want to say he was like 13 or something.
Right. Yes.
But like,
yeah, that sounds possible. I don't know, but yeah, like we've talked about this on previous episodes. Like we talked about this in the context of the Britney situation. And if you haven't heard that episode, we'll put a link to it in the show notes. the unrealistic expectations that we have of people who are celebrities, without really understanding the reality of their work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. There are upsides, there are benefits, of course. And still, like, I mean, I did stupid shit when I was that age. Like, I mean, it's not like, I mean, I didn't do this, but I did a lot of stupid shit, and I did do for many years. I mean, I do less stupid shit now, but I still do stupid shit, and I'm in my mid-40s. So I'm just glad there aren't paparazzis around every corner trying to catch all the stupid shit that I do.
God, I would be viral gold. I mean,
the amount of times we said we're so grateful that social media did not exist as we were growing up, I just cannot imagine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so back on topic. And this isn't going to be like a Bieber bashing episode or even really talking about celebrity in general.
Yeah.
However, the situation was interesting. So I'm going to walk you through as I saw it through the video. And it was somebody was recording this on their phone, and right there I'm like, why was somebody recording this? But apparently he was at a nightclub, and the club was packed, and the bathrooms were on the complete other side of the nightclub. He was walking through a back kitchen area, and he really had to pee. And so supposedly the manager or whoever was directing him, like, this is how you exit through, it was like, just go pee in this mop bucket. So there's a mop bucket there, and there's a video of him peeing in the mop bucket, and everybody's like, oh, you know, and he caught a lot of shit for this. Now, the mop bucket was in the kitchen. So
right there. There's
peeing in a bucket in feelings. Public. You're peeing in a bucket in kitchen. You're peeing in the mop bucket in the kitchen. There's a lot of things. And he was supposedly told he could do so by the person who was directing him in charge of the venue.
Right.
That aside.
Someone who he had a reasonable belief had the authority to say whether or not it was okay.
Right. Like, I with all the things that I've seen him do in his younger years, I feel like maybe I'm wrong, and maybe my, like, what I know is skewed, but I don't think he would just stop in the middle of a kitchen and pee into a bucket if that wasn't, like, there are certain
celebrities you can imagine who would be who would do it without even stopping to consider what room they were in, what it was they were peeing on. Like, but I don't think he's one of. And again, this is also maybe showing my celebrity culture is not something that it's something not something I'm clued up on. So maybe I don't know either, but I agree with you. Like, I think that's fair from what I know.
And a very valid comment came up from another celebrity in this, and it was from Anthony Bourdain. And if you don't know who Anthony Bourdain is, he was a chef. He had extensive experience in the kitchen. I mean, like, the kitchen, like, he did traveling shows and lots of food shows where he was eating different things, but, like, he was a chef. And the kitchen in the restaurant industry, if you've never, it's hard because I grew up in the restaurant industry, so I know what a kitchen is. It's like it's almost like a
it's a place where they make the food, right?
Yeah. that would be it. But it's kind of sacred isn't the right word, but it is it's a space that is respected by.
Well, and also, like, I mean, not only is it a kind of respected space in one respect, it's also from a food hygiene standpoint. There are a lot of rules around the kitchen, what you can do, what you can't do, what you must do, what you must not do. So there's lots of layers to this.
Like, if you're supposed to be wearing gloves when you're cutting carrots, you probably shouldn't be peeing in a mop bucket in the same area. I mean, I've been out of the industry for a while. Maybe things have changed, but I feel like certain things are standards.
I think that's fair.
Anthony Bourdain had made a comment, and it was along the lines of, like, now somebody's got to deal with that. Like, and that just hit me. I was like, he's so right. Like, obviously somebody has to deal with that, but there is somebody there. I doubt the manager had to drain that bucket. Doubt it.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
I've been in a lot of management roles. I can't, like, I would never instruct anybody to pee in a bucket. Well, I don't believe I would instruct anybody to pee in a bucket in a kitchen. And if I did, I would make sure that I was the one that was dealing with the repercussions of such thing. It does not sound like that was the situation. And this whole situation aside, it really got me thinking. I'm like, there's so many times that myself, people in general, are just so unaware of the fact now somebody has to deal with that. Like at a retail store, and I have a friend who's in retail management. You take out like the sweatshirt and then like people just shove it back in or drop it on the floor. Now somebody has to deal with that. And the phrase, well, that's their job, that's what they're getting paid for, like, fuck that bullshit.
No, that's not what they're getting paid for. They are getting paid for a reasonable expectation of the roles that are part of that job. And I think this is where this kind of comes in, which is that, like, looking at it from again, unsurprisingly, we're going to look at it from a needs context. Shocking, I know.
On needs.
We should do. So let's look at the Bieber bucket Bourdain situation. I mean, Bieber Bourdain bucket sounds better, but I think technically it should be the other way around, because
it was Bieber, anyway. Then the bucket, then Bourdain.
Then the Bourdain, exactly. Like, if you look at that situation, you have somebody who has a need. They have a need to expel something from their body. Valid need. We all have it. We've talked on previous podcasts about how a lot of people wait till the very last minute, and that's the reason that we will often cheer our clients when they say at the first moment, I need to go to the bathroom. So we're on board with peeing. Like, that is like, we're thumbs up for peeing. This is not something we should be avoiding.
Run behind me, that's my husband, and like it's like he stays, like, I have my podcasting time and space, but if he needs to go pee, I'm like, absolutely, you come out and you go pee, because
absolutely, like, in the bathroom. What she means is the bathroom is behind where he's not going to come and pee in a bucket in the middle of their kitchen, which you can see behind him. Just for clarity's sake, in case it was required.
If you want to come out. Don't.
No. So, like, we understand that. Now, the interesting thing about this situation is that, let's look at it. What do we always talk about? Meeting your needs in a self-first way. So meeting your needs in ways that at the minimum do not negatively impact somebody else's needs, and sometimes may benefit somebody else's needs. Now, in this situation, we don't know the context of the situation. We don't know whether he just didn't think about things in ahead. We didn't plan in advance. He just left it to the last minute because he thought that he could get away with leaving it to the last minute. Like, there's a number of, like, we don't know the full context of this situation. But ultimately, what he has done is he's created a situation where he needs to get his needs met. And somewhere along the way, there has been a disconnect between him needing to get his needs met and the way that he's actually going to get them met. Like, he's not planned for it. He's not figured out, oh, hold on, I need to pee right this second. He at first, like, warning. It reminds me, there used to be a section of one of the theme parks in Orlando, which was like the human body, and there was this installation there called Cranium Command, where it was like this person was in the head of a teenager and would like check in with the different parts of the body, and he'd be like so when he saw a girl, he like the heart was like really pumping, and there were like little people in all the different parts of the body, and so they're like the part was like, oh, okay, we're really going now, kind of thing. And there's a point at which he checks in with the bladder to see where it's at, and the person at the bladder goes, okay, we're at 99.98% full, and the person who's in the Cranium Command, oh, apparently we've got the phone ringing, but don't worry about it because I don't have to get it, somebody else will get that. So the person who's like in the brain, who's obviously having to coordinate all of this, goes, yeah, we can hold it. And the person in the bladder is like, no. And it's like, kind of like, that's what I've got in my head of like we haven't paid attention when the bladder's like, okay, dude, we're at 50%. Like, we might need to think about this sometime soon. It's just being ignored. And so what's ended up happening is that in order to get his needs met, he is now looking for a situation. And probably what's happened is, I'm guessing, is that he's probably gone, oh, I really need to go to the bathroom, the toilets, like, how do we make this work? And what's probably happened is, in that situation, the manager is looking for a solution to this now problem. And the manager is the one that said, oh, it's okay, you can pee in the bucket. Now, the key thing here is, that is only not negatively impacting somebody's needs if, as Serena said, the manager was the one to go, I'm now going to deal with this. Because I can give consent for you to do it in a way that I'm going to need to deal with, because I'm the one who's saying, okay, do it this way, and I will take responsibility for addressing the situation so nobody else has to. Like, put aside for the second that peeing in an open kitchen, there are potential food hygiene issues with that. Like, again, it's like if the manager was like, come pee in this bucket in my office, so I'm the only one who's got to deal with the fallout and I'm the one who's going to clean it up, that would have been slightly different. And that's the issue, is that what then has happened is that the person who now is going to have to deal with that, when you apply to go work in a kitchen, cleaning up a bucket of urine is not something that is on your reasonable expectations of what that job will involve. Like, if you are somebody who gets off all the sweaters, like putting back a sweater or two if you're working in retail, yeah, that's reasonable. If somebody comes in and takes every sweater in the place and takes it off the shelf and then expects you to put it back, that is not a reasonable expectation of the job. What's coming to mind is there was a brilliant video I saw somebody share on malicious compliance. I don't know whether you know the term malicious compliance. So malicious compliance is basically doing the thing you're supposed to do in a way that's probably going to be inconvenient or disruptive to somebody else. But so it's like, this is going to cause a problem, but you're just doing what you're supposed to do. So that, like, malicious compliance. And so this woman was telling the story about the fact that she was working in retail, and she was the only person who was in store, and she was at the front of the like at the cashier area. And this woman came in with a child of hers, and all of a sudden and I can't remember the details. I may be like embellishing somewhat, because I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen this video, but the general gist of it was that I think she heard a noise or something, and she went down this aisle, and I don't know whether it was the toy aisle or it might have been the Christmas decoration aisle or something, and literally the child had just pulled everything off of the shelves, and it was all in the thoroughfare. And the mother said to the child, come on, let's let this lady like clean this up, and walked off, and then went to stand at the cashier to check out. And so the person who was the only person who was working, the only person in store, starts putting the things back, and this woman's like tutting and like, and then eventually she comes over and she says to the, can you check me out, please? And she turned around and said, I'm very sorry, but this is actually a hazard. It's health and safety. I cannot leave this area until it has been cleaned up. So I'm going to have to do this before I can check you out. And I'm the only person in store right now, so you're going to have to wait. So it's that malicious compliance. Like, she was doing her job as the woman had said she was supposed to do. And in doing so, it actually inconvenienced the person who had caused the issue in the first place and wanted to check out. It's that's because, again, like, putting a few things back on the shelves is reasonable. Expecting someone to take everything off a set of shelves of an aisle and have to put all of that back on by yourself when you're the only person in store, not reasonable to expect. That is not a reasonable expectation. And so when you are doing something which is creating a scenario which is unrealistic and unreasonable for somebody to expect to be a part of their job, you are negatively compromising their needs. Because what you are doing at that point is you're saying, I don't respect or value you in your job. I feel entitled to you doing what I want you to do, irrespective of the fact that it's not a reasonable expectation of your role.
Well, and this is a sidestep. It really doesn't have, I mean, it obviously has something to do with it since I'm bringing it up. But, like, we've said it multiple times. Adulting is hard. Like, work is hard. Going to work, like, I don't know many people, even if you love your, like, we love our work. Work can be hard. It can be tiring. You have multiple balls going at one time, and you have your personal balls that you're supposed to leave outside of the work door, so you got those that you're trying to ignore.
We're back to dodgeball from the previous episode, where like one smacks you in the face, the other one's hit you in the side of the head, the other one's like caught you behind the knee.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I feel like that is a lot of people's like total experience of work. Like some days it's easy, some days it's a shit show, and then there's the kind of status quo norm. Now, trying to figure out where I was going. I'm going to get this back. We're going to circle back, and this thought is going to be there. Fuck.
I'm trying to figure it back in.
Damn it. Oh. I don't see how, like, and I used to be one of these people. Like, and it wasn't like I wasn't peeing in buckets in kitchens and stuff like that. But like, you know, just simple things where I'm like, oh, that's their job. They can put that back. Or like I pick something up from one area of the store and then I'm like, oh, I could walk this back over. Nope, somebody's getting paid to do that. Like, do you want somebody going into your job just like fucking about with shit because it like, oh, that's your job. That's your job. Yeah, everything could be your job if you're the person in charge of the place like, that shit's going down. But like,
if you were like, if it was your job to create a spreadsheet and your job was to like input all of the stuff and somebody just walked along and deleted a whole bunch of stuff out of your spreadsheet, well, it's your job to put it in. So I'm just going to leave it for you to fix. Like, you'd be up in arms if somebody did that.
And
like, just because
it is very much the same thing. Like I can see people being like, well, that wouldn't happen. Like,
but it's the equivalent thereof. Like just because somebody is customer facing and having to deal with people who are not always reasonable in how they behave in public, just because they're in retail, just because they're in hospitality, doesn't mean to say that it should be okay. It's like people who go in like sometimes there was a phase in like the 70s, 80s, 90s where like rock stars would destroy hotel rooms, and it's like that is not acceptable. Like that is not, like, you are damaging, you're not only you costing the hotel money, and I'm sure they got charged for those things, or in some cases and probably not in others, but you are giving somebody either more work to do or unreasonable work that is not part of their day-to-day experience. And yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions to situations. Like, yeah, if somebody has a medical event in the middle of a retail store, I can't imagine the like you can't have the retail person going, oh, sorry, not my job. That's not part, like, it's not a reasonable expectation of my job description. Nothing I can do for you. I'm heading off. Yeah, there are times when exceptional situations happen, that there are things that happen through nobody's fault, either because of an accident, because of a mistake, because of circumstances beyond everyone's control. That's reasonable and that's okay. Like, it's like, yeah, it might still suck that you've got to deal with it, but that's not somebody else meeting their needs in ways and choosing to meet their needs in ways that are going to negatively impact somebody else's needs. And especially when it comes to, I think that the other layer that kind of gets added to this is that when you think about there are certain job roles that are considered less than, that are considered quote unquote unskilled. You try turning around a hotel room within the space of time that they are given and ensuring that everything is spick and span, that the bed is like, that takes skill to do that. Like people who work in kitchens, there's this, unless you are a top chef, there's this perception that kitchen work is considered unskilled. Like, try it as somebody who has worked in a kitchen. Like, it's not like you have to, and it doesn't really matter. Every job role is important. There's a reason somebody's being paid to do it. And that's because it's important that it gets done. And if it's important that it gets done and someone is being paid to do it, they should be respected. And I think that what ends up happening is that when you get into retail situations, when you get into hospitality situations, there's this perceived superiority of people who don't work in those situations towards the people who are, which seems to bring out the worst kind of behavior. So not only are you disconnecting from your humanity and therefore compromising your value need because you are negatively impacting somebody else's needs to try to meet your own, but actually that is amplified because if you are seeing yourself as superior to the person, you are disconnecting even further from their humanity, which means you're amplifying that impact to not just their needs, but to your needs as well. And I think that so often there's this perception that I can do what, there's a sense of entitlement to be able to. Now, I don't know in this situation with Bieber whether he was like, oh, I can just do whatever I want, or whether it genuinely was somebody else told him to, and he was like, well, if that's what I'm being told to do, like, that's what I'm supposed, like, I don't feel like I've got a choice. Like, we don't know about the circumstance of this situation, but the truth of the matter is that person, whoever they were, there is somebody in the world who has had to clean up Justin Bieber's pee out of a bucket that should never have had to do so, because they didn't agree to do it. It wasn't that they went, okay, it's all right, dude, you do that, I'll take care of it. And then it's a mop bucket. So that needs to be bleached, cleaned thoroughly, replaced, or whatever. All of these things that were never part of a normal kitchen working experience.
Well, and that's like, there's a knock-on effect with anything like that. The hotel room, that's something that has always gotten to me when people destroy a hotel room. And then once I was in hospitality, and when you're a manager in hospitality, when there's like a hotel situation, you are all of the things at some point or another. Mm-hmm. You are stripping beds, you are cleaning up the parties, and some of the things that I have witnessed, are mind blowing. Like, you couldn't even imagine.
Horrifying.
Horrifying.
One of my best friend at university, her mum was also a manager of a hotel. So I've had the stories from you and I've had them from her, and they're horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Like, I actually go into places, like, if I like, I'll strip the bed sometimes just to help these people. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of times people who haven't traveled with me or, you know, don't know my experience, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm like literally cleaning up the hotel room. I'm like, this is one less room that they're gonna have to like deal with, because they do. Right. They get certain amount of rooms that they have to be able to do during a day. You have a certain amount of time, and anything has a knock-on effect to the next room, which has a knock-on effect to the next room, which then affects somebody else, because somebody else has to pick it up, whether it's a manager or another staff member. Like, these things, little things, have a knock-on effect in people's, you know, we're talking about work here, so I'm going to stick with like kind of the work things. Like, it could go completely rogue, but like Claire said, there is an expected job description. These are things that I can reasonably expect to do in my job, like cleaning up some of the things that I've had to clean up myself, that I've heard of having to be cleaned up. Unacceptable in any way whatsoever. Yep. And the impact seems like, oh, it was just, oh, it's a bad room, you're a housekeeper, like, you're gonna have a bad room or two. That it lands deeper than just a bad room and a bad day and that kind of thing. It sets this like tone for disrespect.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Like, in doing so, you are demonstrating disrespect for the person who's going to have to clean that up. Like, you are seeing yourself as superior. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, their needs don't matter. It doesn't matter the impact this has on them. All that matters is that I want to do this in the way that I want to do it. And I think that's the thing, is that there's such a like, I don't think people realize that's what they're doing, but subconsciously that is absolutely what is happening. And I'm the same as somebody. I've managed Airbnbs in the past. I've managed bed and breakfasts. So I have also been everything at various times, and I have seen some things, and I have been treated some ways by people who have had absolutely abhorrent behavior. And the thing about it is that every time you do that that we've talked about this over and over again, what we don't realize is that when we do this to other people, we are compromising our own needs in the process. And not only does it not have to be this way, if we considered, I think this is the thing that most people don't get, everybody is a part of your community. Everybody. Every single person, from the people who are working in hospitality, to the people who are working in the office, to the houseless people, to the people who are disabled, to, like, everybody is a part of your community. And if you started viewing people like they were part of your community, we would all be looking to try and help and support each other, or at the very least, not negatively impact them. Because that's the thing, like, the bare minimum in these situations is to operate in a way which least impacts everyone around you. And sometimes there was, like, it makes me think of, I was at a dance event a few weeks ago, and I was it was the end of the night, and somebody was giving me a ride home, but they were helping to break down and like the speakers and the lights and the music setup and everything. So I was stood there. I didn't have anything to do, and this was the night was at a venue where there were like a number of different function rooms, and then there was a bar, and the bar was next door to the room that we were in. So the person who was working the bar, who I believe was the only person, like member of staff on site at this point, was not in the room that we were in. A bunch of people had had drinks as part of their evening, and there were empty glasses on a lot of the tables. And I start collecting the glasses up to take them to the bar. And somebody said, "Oh, don't worry about that, Claire. They'll do that."
Mm-hmm.
No, not they. Her, the bartender, the person. That's the person. Now, I've been a bartender. I know what it's like at the end of a night when you just want to get home. And you have to wait till everybody's gone, and then you have to clean everything up. And even just one of those journeys, say, like, that's one less trip she's going to have to do into this room. And I just was amazed. And I said to them, it's a little bit like collecting plates at the end of a meal. Like, if you have somebody who's worked as a server, you know how helpful that can be. And a lot of the times, Serena and I will do it without even realizing that's what we're doing. Just because if there's something we can do and it doesn't negatively impact us at all, it doesn't cost us anything to do it. I was going to be there waiting around for another 10 or 15 minutes anyway. It literally didn't cost me anything. It was no issue whatsoever to take these glasses into the next room. But I knew it would make a difference to this person. And rather than seeing it as them and us, rather than seeing, oh, apparently we're popular
house today.
like with like the phone is doing its phone thing. I'm looking at it going, it's one of those ones where the number comes up. I'm like, oh, it's like a scam call to me. Don't interrupt my recording, scammers. Anyway, if it doesn't cost you anything, and why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you act to just help and support the people around you? Everyone's struggling. Everyone's having a tough time. And I'm not saying that you have to do this. It's not your responsibility to do this, in the sense that, like, it's not like, you might be depleted. You might have a sore leg. There might be a number of reasons why you don't do this. But if you can, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it, why wouldn't you?
It's like returning the cart, like the shopping cart. Yeah. Like, that's one of those, like, there are some times when, like, for whatever reason, it's just, I cannot move this cart any further. I'm either rush it. Like, there might be, there could be things as to why, but I'd say probably 99% of the time I return the cart back in the rain when the cart return is in the store and I parked at the other end of the parking lot. And I get that it's just one cart, and that is one less cart. Like, I always think about it this way, and please feel free to comment on this way of thinking, but I don't want to be the person collecting carts. Like, that is not a job that I want to do. And if I can help make that person's job of collecting carts a little bit easier, like, I feel like that's I'm going
to jump in. I would remove the first half of that sentence. It doesn't matter whether or not you'd want to do that job. And generally speaking, a lot of the reason that people don't want to do jobs is because they see them as being inferior, or they think that there's judgments around those kind of jobs. I would do away with that part of the sentence. Just the second part. If you can make somebody's job a little bit easier, why wouldn't you? Like, forget whether or not you'd want to do it, because even if it's a job you would want to do, why would you still not want to make it easier for somebody?
I knew there was something with the verbiage. I was like, something doesn't feel quite right, but like that's exactly like somebody, I don't know how, like, people would come and make our job easier based on what we do, but if there was a way somebody could make our job, like, doing one little thing, it's like, oh, that's one less thing I have to do right now. Like, that's an amazing feeling, and especially when it's somebody that is doing it just because, like, that's how they do. Like, you can brighten somebody's day by putting a cart away. Like, and that's a special thing. Like, it doesn't take much to show community, to show care, to show
respect,
respect and value of making it all work. Like, and that's the thing,
right.
we all work together to make it work. If one of these cogs comes out because you don't think it's valuable enough to be there, like, the whole system
Try
falls
it.
apart.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. Like when certain workers couldn't get into, like, it's amazing. Like they were the critical workers, like
Mm-hmm.
critical, as in essential workers, as in they are needed to make our society function. Like the other thing that always comes to my mind is like when you go somewhere and there's a cleaning crew. Like I thank the cleaning crew when I see
Mm-hmm.
them, like acknowledge them, because like, yeah, I appreciate what they're doing. And yeah, they're getting paid for it, but that doesn't matter. I appreciate them. And how many people don't even look at them?
Mm-hmm.
How many people don't even
Bathroom
acknowledge their
attendants.
existence? Yes.
Like, I see people destroy bathrooms, and these people
Oh,
are working especially at, like, airports, and they're
yeah.
working feverishly to keep, like, some
Yeah.
sense of order and cleanliness. And, like, when you connect with somebody and you're like, thank you, like.
Yeah. I appreciate what you're doing. And it's funny because like I'm thinking about like the cart thing. So there was a instance maybe a month ago where I went to go and I went to go and return the cart. And when I returned the cart, it was one of these grocery stores where they have the little chains connecting the carts up. I don't know whether you have them in the US.
Yeah, there's
Where
only one. There's one store that does it.
you
You put a
need like a
quarter in.
coin or a token or something in order to lose it, which means that there need to be chains. And this was one that had two different size of carts. So there was like little bitty carts and then there were the big carts. And in order for that system to work, there has to be two chains in the trolley park area, because you need one for the itty bitty ones and one for the big ones so that they can stack. And as I'm walking towards it, I'm looking at it and it was pelting down with rain. Somebody had like left, like they'd done it weird. And I'm like, why would you do that? That's really odd. And when I got there, there was only one chain. Which means that people were needing to connect up little carts and big carts so they couldn't stack them the way that they were supposed to be stacked. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I understand this. I'm going to do the same thing because it's pouring with rain. I have returned the cart. That's up to the supermarket to ensure that the facilities are there so that when you return your cart, that you have the ability to do it. And it's like, and to be honest, if it hadn't been pelting down with rain, I probably would have taken it somewhere else so that I didn't have, so that the person who was in the parking lot didn't have to, the parking lot attendant was the one who had to deal with all of that. But there are so many of these instances where our comfort or convenience is prioritized above everything and everyone else. And the second you do that, you are seeing yourself and your needs as superior to them and their needs. The second you do that, you compromise your needs. The second you even think it, and you don't necessarily realize it, but it happens at a subconscious level. There is a disconnect that happens, and it compromises you. And it takes time and intention to actually start to shift that in another direction. But when you do, it really does make a difference to your own experience, but also these little ripple effects of just pleasantry end up going through society. Like, it shouldn't be a big deal to acknowledge somebody. It shouldn't be a big deal to strip the bed in an Airbnb or return the glasses to the bar if you're in a bar and there's somebody working alone. It shouldn't be a big deal to stack the plates at the end of a meal to make it easier for the server. And I think sometimes what will end up happening is people go, oh, well, I've done part of the job for them, so they don't deserve their tip. No, they still are doing the job. You're doing something nice for them. You are doing something to help them. Taking something away from them negates that. Like, that's not how this works. And I think that so often I think the more that I can invite you to see everybody in your world as part of your community and be mindful of being self first, not only with respect to the people that you know, but also with respect to the ripple effect on the people who will have to deal with the consequences of the choices and the actions and the behaviors that you are making. And if that consequence is unreasonable, unacceptable, out of alignment with what is reasonably expected within a certain role, that's your responsibility to do something about.
And when, like, this might be a rabbit hole we don't want to jump down, or it might just be like a little pothole when I'm seeing it as bigger than it is. The same kind of goes with how you approach people with like your attitude, and like like somebody has to, like, you can have so much going on, and we've talked about it in other episodes, but if you impact somebody, especially somebody you don't know, with something that has no concern on them, like, now they have to deal with the impact of you, like, all I can think
shouting
of,
at
like,
them because you're angry or something.
exactly. And it's like, there's people think of these things as just moments, like, oh, like, it didn't bother me that much, I had a moment, and they just have to deal with it. And it's like, yeah, now they have to deal with it, and you don't know what that knock-on effect is. So I always try to think of like the wholeness of like the situation I'm in. Like, there have been times where all of a sudden this attitude came out, and I'm like, and I'll stop myself like wherever I am, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with you. I am so like, and you know, acknowledging the fact, like, I don't mean to be snippy at you, like, you know, apologize, restart, do what we have to do. But I think I wanted to mention, it's not just your actions. You also have to be mindful of your, like, what you're putting out in general.
Your behavior towards people. I think that again, there's nuance with this, because as we were talking about the like a couple of episodes ago, like, the only thing that you owe people is not to negatively impact their needs, and there's nuance and subtlety when it comes to what impacts other people's needs and don't and isn't. So, like, as we talked about in that episode, if you are merrily just existing and someone tries to pull you into something that you don't want to have any part of, you don't owe them politeness in that situation to be like, actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm just going to keep going, or what have you. So I think that when it comes to words like attitude and politeness and rudeness, we have to be mindful, because there's context always to these situations, and the context matters. And that being said, I think that one of the things that is very present here is this idea that if we are meeting our needs in ways that negatively impacts other people mentally, emotionally, energetically, as well as physically, that is every bit as much what we're talking about here. So if, for example, if we are putting ourselves in a situation where we are dealing with a server or a retail worker or what have you, and we treat them disrespectfully, or we speak to them disrespectfully, and again, disrespect, a lot of people have this idea about what respect and disrespect is, and I'm sure we'll do a podcast episode on this at some point, because a lot of people see that that believe they're being disrespected if they're not, people are not
placating,
accommodating their entitlement or their sense of entitlement. That's not true. So I that's why I'm a little hesitant to use these words, because I think that there's objective respect and disrespect, and then there's people that perceive disrespect or respect that's not. They think respect looks a certain way, or think disrespect looks a certain way, and it's like, that has nothing to do with respect or disrespect. That's you believing, you feeling entitled to me responding in a certain way. So interestingly enough, I'm going to take this, I'm going to try to avoid the rabbit hole, because this is another episode that I want to record at some point, but I think it is relevant to this situation. So as anybody who listens to the podcast knows, I am a big watcher of very, very trashy reality TV shows, a lot of them regarding relationships and dating, because for me it's very, like, it's always interesting seeing the needs interacting, seeing how people relate in a needs context. It's weirdly researched for me in a lot of ways. In fact, to the extent where actually Serena has seen me take clients through like a segment of an episode and break down something we teach in the context of seeing an actual real situation, which really helps people to understand it and really embody it a little bit more. one of these series that I watch is called Married at First Sight. And there are many different versions of Married at First Sight. There's a US one, there's a UK one, there's an Australian one. I'm currently watching the Australian one. And a couple of episodes ago, and obviously this is being recorded like a month out, so we'll be further ahead in the series by the time this goes live. One of the grooms got very angry about a situation, and there's so many layers to this situation, which is why I'm trying not to rabbit hole this, and I'm trying to make sure I stay relevant. Firstly, the thing that he felt angry about was really not, it wasn't like somebody had negatively impacted his needs. He was perceiving something in a certain way and took it as disrespect, even though it had nothing to do with respect or disrespect. His wife was sharing that she had slept with somebody who was a celebrity who happened to be, their music happened to be on the radio. Like, that's not disrespect to him. That's her sharing something. Now, the fact that you are interpreting that as disrespect, that's a you problem, and that's something you need to go and get some work in figuring out how to unwind, because you have no sense of entitlement to, yes, I'm just going to leave that at that, because otherwise I am going to end up tumbling head over heels down this rabbit hole.
I can't save you if you go down that one.
No. So this person was getting angry, and the wife was wanting to resolve the situation quickly. Now, this person said that they wanted space, and obviously there wasn't video footage of what actually happened, so I can't, it's all he said, she said, so I can't speak to objectively here's what I saw happen. But what I can speak to is what I heard them describe, which is that he said he wanted space, she wasn't giving him space, and he got so angry that he punched a hole in a door. Now, this is one of those situations that we are talking about. This is somebody who is obviously incapable of processing and managing his emotional state and his behavior in an appropriate way. We have said on multiple episodes, anger is an appropriate response to some situations. Do I think that anger was an appropriate response in this situation? No, I don't. I do think that this person needs to do some serious work to figure out what connections they are making that is creating anger out of this situation, because it is not appropriate given what was being shared. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even if you're in a situation where you have anger is a reasonable response to a circumstance or something somebody else has done or said to you, you need to be able to process your anger in such a way and express your anger in a way that doesn't negatively impact somebody else. So here's this person who is in relationship with this guy, who has now had to bear witness to a very violent outburst, which is, and she said that she's not scared of him. I think consciously she doesn't want to be scared of him. I don't know any woman who would witness that kind of thing and subconsciously not have fear in her system, because violence and physical safety is something that we are consciously aware of. And our brains, I've said this on many episodes, our brains are very good at convincing ourselves of the things that we want to be true to try to get our needs met. And the truth of the matter is, she's fallen hard for him. She doesn't want to be scared of it. She wants everything to be okay. And I don't know how much of what she is saying is actually the truth, or what she's trying to convince herself of because she would like this relationship to survive. Now, as I said, even if he had every right to be angry, it is his responsibility to learn how to process his anger in ways that don't negatively impact the people around him. And this is an example of what, like, it's not just, this is example of what Serena was talking about, where you are processing your emotions, but you're doing it in such a way where somebody else is taking the hit for your unmet needs, rather than you going, okay, as I said, he wasn't entitled to feeling angry in this situation based on the information I have. I said there could be more to it, I don't know, but based on the information I have, that is not an appropriate situation to get angry about. even if it had been an appropriate situation, this is something where if you are getting angry, you need to know this about yourself and know, how do I process anger in a way that is healthy and constructive and supportive to me and everybody around me? And the fact that it was done in the way that it was is absolutely toxic, absolutely unacceptable, and absolutely is going to have a negative impact, not only on the needs of his wife, but actually the needs of the women who are all part of that experiment, who all have to be around him on the regular. Because if I'd heard that and I was a part of that group, I would be like, oh hell no, this person does not feel safe to me for me to be around. And here's the interesting thing. Interesting, sickening, revolting, horrific, depending, like multiple labels you can put on it. When this person was held to account for what he did, he was so focused in on his feelings. All that mattered was how he was upset. This isn't me. Well, actually, no, it is you. And the fact that you're saying it isn't you is going to be a barrier to you doing the work necessary to learn how to never do this again. Rather than owning, I did this is completely unacceptable, I need to get some help, whether that's a therapist, whether it's doing work with a mentor like we are, whether it is going to the so-called experts on the TV show. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole in this episode because I have a lot of feelings about that. From a needs perspective, we may come back to that on another episode. And owning and taking responsibility for the fact that I need to find, if I don't know how to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And that's what I'm seeing in this, is like he's trying to just say, by sheer willpower, this will never happen again. I will never allow this to happen again, without understanding why has it happened and how can you manage it next time so that it won't happen again. And without those pieces of the puzzle, there's going to be even less feeling of safety for her and everybody around him. And because he's making it about how he feels and she's comforting him, she's the one who's been negatively impacted by his choices. And again, patriarchy. There are so many. I am literally like, it's like I'm running through a field of rabbit holes and desperately trying to avoid sliding down in every possible direction. But this is what we're talking about here.
Well, and there is a lot of impact there because now his wife has to deal with it. The people that are living in the house have to deal with it. And I get production and all of this other stuff, but I can put money on the fact he wasn't there, like fixing that hole up, patching it up.
Oh,
somebody's got to deal with that fucking bullshit too now. Like, and that's the thing. Like, we don't, like, and it's
all
not
of the people who are watching who might be DV survivors who have now been triggered by having to witness somebody else go through it and seeing how it's being handled is so woefully inadequate and unacceptable
and problematic. Like,
right, absolutely, it's so problematic. So it's like, this is the thing, is that it's so important for us to take responsibility for our needs, for our unmet needs, and ensure. And funny enough, I know we're kind of talking about what you brought up. My brain is not having a hard time recalling the example that you gave, or the thing that you were saying that kind of caused me to go down this particular rabbit hole. I think it was about the emotional side of things as well as like the physical.
Yeah, because initially we were talking about like the physical the physical actions, peeing in a bucket, destroying a shelf for retail, and then the emotional impact, like thinking like somebody has to deal with the emotional impact of what you might be dealing with, or your privilege, or whatever it is that's present.
And a lot of the time the emotional impacts are actually way harder to deal with than the physical, because the emotional are not as easy to identify. They're not as easy to notice. So it's like, I can see the difference in his wife before and after this happened. And like, I mean, anybody watching the show can see there's been a difference, but there is a real difference. And I don't think she's even acknowledging fully the impact that it has had to her, and therefore what she needs to do to heal for herself, and also what needs to happen between the two of them to create actual healing.
I think you said something that really just kind of resonated, is she probably doesn't even realize the impact it's had on her. I think in a lot of these situations, whether we're talking about, a hospitality or like something along those lines, or if it's an interpersonal thing, like a lot of times people don't realize that consciously, they don't realize the disrespect. They don't realize the impact to the needs. They're not conscious. The housekeeper that's picking up like things that have human spits on them.
Fluids. Or,
Like, yeah, like, I don't know how to say that without, like,
yes.
you know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah.
may be like, all right, this is just another
This
day
is
at
just
the
a shitty
job.
job. Mm-hmm.
And that has an impact unconsciously that says,
Mm-hmm.
well, they don't value me. They don't value what I'm doing. And like, then it starts this like internal spiral that you're not even like, a lot of people aren't
Right.
even aware of it. And
Yeah.
it's, I think one of the biggest things in this work for me was the interconnectedness piece, realizing how much positively, negatively, and everywhere in between I impact people that I know, that I don't know, like the impact I have in the daily lives of my community, like,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can utilize that for good, or I can utilize that
Mm-hmm.
to just feed into these things that have become so normalized in our culture, like that
Mm-hmm.
it's sad.
Yeah, it is. And I think that the fact that so much of this stuff is subconscious. This is the reason that having a regular practice around your needs is so essential, because the most important thing is to identify when our needs have been impacted, and therefore we can do something consciously, intentionally, proactively to re-meet them again. And a lot of the times we may not see the impact it's had to us. We may not notice at a conscious level. But if you're doing your needs practice in such a way where you're checking in with your needs regularly and you're like, okay, this feels like it needs a little more today. Or if the way of meeting the need is different to what it would be normally, it's like, okay, why am I feeling like I don't normally go to this place? Like, I mean, it obviously meets my needs because it's on my needs menu, but it's like the fact that I'm like for example, it might be that your value need, the way that really is going to meet your value need is to remind yourself that you're worthy of respect. Well, if you're wanting to remind yourself you're worthy of respect, that's probably because something has happened to make you feel like you're not being respected.
Mm-hmm.
That could be something you've said or done to yourself. It could be your internal monologue. It could be actions you've taken. It could be actions other people have taken. It could be things other people have said to you or not said to you. There's all these things. And then, but because a lot of us, and again, like we're busy, life be lifing, that we're always there's always something. We're always busy. There's always something going on, which means that we may not take the stop to pause to realize, like we might not notice that there's something feels off right now, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know why it feels off, but something feels off, and therefore, by having a regular point to check in with your needs, you're more likely to notice the things that are sitting underneath the surface, the things that are in your subconscious that you aren't actually aware of until you check in, and then you go, I'm curious why I want to do it that way. Now, you don't have to go into the why, but actually it may be that the way of meeting need that resonates with you on that particular day helps you to realize that situation at work yesterday, I think that's had an effect on me. And you might therefore want to take a little bit more time or do a little bit more with respect to that need or that particular way of meeting that need to heal the impact of the things that other people have done to you. Now, that doesn't heal the relationship, and it doesn't heal for the other person, the impact to them of disrespecting you. But you can do those things for yourself. And if you are in relationship with that person, so like obviously this can happen in multitude of different ways. The amount of times that Serena and I are like, we don't realize at the time that something is impacting us, and then the little while later we're like, oh, I think that affected me more than I thought it did. And so we'll raise it with each other and be like, hey, I didn't realize it at the time, but this really, like, it triggered him. And it's like, it's not like you've done this bad thing to me. It'd be like, this thing that you did that didn't really seem like that big of a deal, I think it's triggered this other thing. I just want you to know so you understand me better. So like, and like there are things that we will and won't say to each other because we understand each other from those conversations. And we can then, in those moments where we become consciously aware of, oh, I did this thing and it negatively impacted somebody else, even if we didn't mean to, even if we weren't aware of it at the time, we can then take the steps to heal it, which is going to be better for us. It's going to be better for them. It's going to be better for our relationships. It's going to be better for our communities. And so, go on.
And once you start doing that, and like you start doing it with your close relationships, kind of like anything that we teach, like it does have this ripple effect out, and you'll start doing it more. Like I don't think about returning the cart anymore. I just do it because like it's helpful. Like those little things, like if I was in this situation, I would like to think if I was in that situation where I had to go pee really bad and I'm walking through the kitchen, the manager's like, just pee in that bucket. Be like, okay, well, do you want me to take the bucket out after with me? Like, there's, it
how
kind
is
of
that going to get cleaned up? Yeah,
it conditions the thought process of how is this going to impact somebody else, and you kind of get into this cycle of just being like thinking of thinking of many of the things like, oh, if I do this, then I will have this knock-on effect. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way because there's I'm going to say almost always another way to do something.
Exactly how to phrase it.
Doesn't impact somebody negatively.
And if it remember, like, what's the end of that sentence? There's almost always a way to meet your needs that doesn't negatively impact somebody else, and therefore in ways that don't also negatively impact your needs further. It's not just about other people. Yes, it is. We have to be community conscious. We have to be mindful of the people around us. It's like the environment that we are surrounded by, the ecosystem, is made up of the people and like the physical environment, but the people and society around us. The more that we put good into that, the more we're going to end up benefiting from it as well. And we want to be mindful of the fact that, yes, there are times when we might negatively impact somebody else by mistake. If we make that right, it's going to heal for them and it's going to heal for us. And also, if we can avoid doing that in the first place and avoid negatively impacting somebody else, and if we're going to do it in ways that sometimes actually benefit for somebody else as well, like, I mean, ding, 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 ding. I mean, like, literally, like needs lighting up all over the place. And if you can do it that way, why wouldn't you? And the why wouldn't you is often because you're disconnected from a sense of community. You're disconnected from the interconnectedness of people around you. And you have a sense of entitlement to prioritizing your needs with a disregard for the impact to others. All of those things are going to negatively impact you. So it's good for you to do this as well as for the people around you. Anything you want to add to this before I slide down another rabbit hole?
No, I'm good.
Yes.
I feel like we adequately got Bieber, the bucket, and Bourdain in there.
I would say so, and a whole bunch of other bees as well, I would say. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. We'll be back again next week with another episode. In the meantime, between now and then, thanks. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, if you meet your needs in ways that negatively impact others, it's going to negatively impact yours as well. There's almost always another way.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.